this really, really core technology that's literally the foundation of like every framework that's built right now. So the pressure is on us to be a good steward of it and make sure that it continues to be available to the community and improve.
Hello, welcome to the Devtools FM podcast. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey everyone. So we're really excited to have Rita and Steve with us today. So y'all are coming from Cloudflare, and Cloudflare had some big news recently. You had acquired Void Zero, so I'm really excited to talk about that. Also, earlier in the year, you acquired Astro, which is also super exciting. Like some of my favorite technologists all in the same place. And y'all just been shipping a lot of really cool stuff lately. So before we dive into it, I'd love to give each of you an opportunity to sort of introduce yourself, and let our audience know what you do, and then we'll dive into it.
Sure, happy to. Hey everyone, I'm Rita. I'm the VP of Product for Cloudflare's developer platform. Actually, tomorrow will be my 10-year anniversary at Cloudflare on the dot, which is blowing my own mind a little bit every time it comes out of my mouth. But yeah, I oversee and lead product kind of across things that relate to compute, storage, AI, developer experience.
And I'm Steve Faulkner. I'm the Senior Director of Engineering in charge of Workers, but also our containers product, like our Agents SDK, all of our framework integrations, things like the Vite plugin, Astro, our Rainbow CLI tools. So it's kind of grown in scope beyond that. And now the Void team as well, and all of the stuff around that in Vite.
For listeners who still think of Cloudflare as the DNS DDoS company, what does your world actually look like now? You guys have so many different services, and really, it seems like you can do everything. So how did we work from DNS company to where we are today?
I think every time we hear Cloudflare described as the DNS DDoS company, a part of my soul dies just a little bit because we do so much more now. And don't worry, like we do hear this quite a bit. And what's cool is that is the foundation that's allowed us to build the platform that we have today, right? We built this massive network through which Cloudflare sees more than 20% of the internet today. But our goal is to make it possible for developers, whereas I think a lot of people originally came to Cloudflare to put Cloudflare in front of their applications to help protect it, make it faster, cache things. Today, we're excited to let developers deploy their applications directly onto Cloudflare's platform. And so we try to offer as many of the different tools as you need, again, from storage, compute, to you do actually need DNS to have your application publicly on the web and help them connect all of those dots.
I'll say I've only been here for 2 years, so I've got a little less time than Rita, but it is wild how far we've come in 2 years and how many products we've added. I mean, it's the full feature thing. You need to build an entire application or an agent now, right? And so you've kind of got everything that you need.
Yeah, it's been really fascinating watching the platform develop. I mean, I remember when like Workers was sort of just being socialized around like tech Twitter, and kind of watching that development. It's been a while now. And then being like, yeah, this is cool, but I have to like connect to all these other external services to like do all this other stuff. And like over time, y'all have really eaten that. And it's like kind of all the basic primitives you need. I mean, R2, the like S3 equivalent, was such a big deal when it landed. Also, I think so you'll have this feature where you can incrementally move off of an S3 bucket by just like passing through requests to it, which I think was like incredibly brilliant. So smart, whoever did that. I hope they got a raise. I don't know. It's been really cool watching the platform come together and like provide all these sort of base primitives. And it's also been really interesting to watch y'all like really actively move into the like AI and agent space a little bit. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about like how you've been thinking about that and that story and how it fits in your sort of like current product offerings.
I can jump in there. So this is something like everybody else, it's starting like kind of last year, right? We just saw how the world was changing, and we saw how people were changing what they were working on with AI. And this just has been accelerating since kind of, this like December, January timeframe, right? And even internally, the same thing was happening, right? We were seeing how we were writing code, how we were writing our own applications, and how we were using these tools, right? And I think it was pretty cool to see that some of the primitives we had really like met the moment of AI, right? Where we came in and, we didn't build things like workers and durable objects intending for them to be used with AI. We built them as cool primitives because we thought they had, unique properties and unique technology. And then AI just happened to need a bunch of these things, right? And so seeing between those two things and then containers, right? Like tons of people coming to us and building agents on top of us and building all of these like other platforms, right? Like we're the place people are building their agents for, their internal use, their external use, like all this stuff. It's been really, really fun and interesting to see. And every day I seems like I come to work and hear about some new launch that's like, oh yeah, that's using durable objects behind the scenes, right? I'm like, whoa, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, to Steve's point, so much of it happened organically, and a lot of origin stories for a lot of products at Cloudflare come out of like someone being like, "Oh, I needed this," and they end up building it, and we realize that it's useful to more than just us, so we make it publicly available. There are, there are some products where obviously we have to be a bit more intentional, like Workers AI, which is our inference product. It allows you to run models like Kimi K 2.6 directly on GPUs running on Cloudflare. That's not something that we just kind of vibed into existence. We had to go and get GPUs and get them installed across our network, and that was based on demand that we were seeing. And Cloudflare is always at its best when we lean into a moment, and we get those industry tailwinds. I think that's one of the things that one of the ways that we compete. If you think about Cloudflare's competitors, like AWS, GCP, Azure, they're much, much bigger than us, but the advantage that we have is that ability to be really nimble and move really fast and rise to the occasion, so that, even I think about a good example of this was when MCP came out. We were the first ones to basically have a server-side implementation ready, to where today, I think practically everyone deploying MCP servers is deploying it on us because it's the canonical example that you come across. But yeah, the kind of very funny thing is, as Steve was saying, Workers is like 9 years old this year, which is crazy. But it turns out that it's kind of this very, very perfect primitive for what you need right now. And, for now that LLMs can generate code so quickly and so efficiently, and you do need all these sandboxes to execute relatively little code sometimes, right? Containers turn out to be a very an overly heavyweight solution for that. And Workers, which are so lightweight, I'm not going to say that we predicted this 9 years ago that agents were going to come around, but it did turn out to be like this just very perfect shape that like fit into just the right hole.
Sweet. So let's move on to the big news of the day. You guys bought Vite and basically in the entire ecosystem. Nowadays, every meta framework is kind of based on Vite. Some of your competitors use Vite even, which will probably lead to some interesting things. What does it mean for Cloudflare to now be the steward of this tooling that is like the entire ecosystem, and how does that kind of fit into your guys' strategy?
I think it means that expectations are very high, and we have a lot of responsibility to like live up to what we've said publicly, right? In the blog post that Evan and I wrote, which is that all this stuff remains open and usable everywhere, right? And still powers every framework and still remains MIT licensed, right? Like that. When I started talking about this deal internally, right, months ago, at pretty much every meeting, I think people were getting annoyed with me just repeating this point, that this is like the most critical thing, right? What Vite has built is amazing, and it is valuable because it is, so agnostic to where you deploy these applications. So that's what we're going to do next. We're just going to keep doing that. We're going to figure out how to make it good for everybody, because that's the way this is successful.
Rita, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I think Steve is completely spot on. Maybe the thing that I would add is, that there's this really, really core technology that's literally the foundation of like every framework that's built right now. So the pressure is on us to be a good steward of it and make sure that it continues to be available to the community and improve. But I feel like the bonus that we got out of it obviously is also a really, really incredible team of truly superstars. And I mean, obviously, Evan Yu is, I think, one of the most prolific and accomplished. I don't even want to say developers. I would say kind of front end technology visionaries. Where he's the person that's been behind Vue, which is one of the biggest frameworks, and obviously Vite. So really, really excited to have the team and also see, actually with a lot of Cloudflare's acquisitions, you never know what direction things are going to go in. Some of them, we acquired the company thinking one thing, and then we got some major wins out of it, but in a completely different dimension. And so, I'm excited to see what innovation comes out of that, and I expect that some of it is going to continue to be in kind of more of the front end space, but some of it also is likely to be in more of the agent space. And like, we're talking about frameworks. What do frameworks look like in a more agentic world?
I'll just double down on the team. I got to meet the whole team through this process, right, and sort of chat with every single person. And that was something that I learned along the way as we were going through this, right, which is like how awesome the team they've assembled is, right? Like some of these people, they're not vocal on Twitter, right? You wouldn't recognize them online. But just hearing some of the things they've built and, building these like building blocks that everybody uses and making them fast, right? One of their developers, I remember he told me a story all about how he basically just stumbled upon OXC by accident and he needed a parser. And then he just did a PR that made it 6 times faster. And they were like, well, maybe you should work here, right? Like that would be a really great idea. Just some of these people that have just like some incredible talent. So very excited to be working with them.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, you've really got some of the best developers in this space in the industry. I mean, that Evan had put together like a very heavy hitting team, not, to discount his own contributions for sure. Software engineering is a challenging job, and it's harder when you're forced to constantly context switch. You have email in one tab, Slack in another, 5 different Google Sheets, so many accounts to keep track of. It can feel like half the job is just dealing with organizational overhead, when really we just want to be writing code. That's where Macro comes in. Macro is a tool to cut through the noise. It's a workspace built for engineers. And it's one place for all your emails, your tasks, your chat, and your documents. The best thing is the source code's available, so if you want to peek under the hood to see how it works, you can definitely do that. If you want to extend it, feel free. The back end is in Rust, and the front end is in TypeScript. It's easy to extend to make anything custom. And the cool thing is, Macro will pay contributors for any features that they land. So if your team is tired of bloated project management, or maybe you're just like starting fresh and you just want one tool instead of many, give Macro a try. It's fast, it's fun, it's a better way to build. Sign up at macro.com and get $100 off your subscription using DevTools100. I think just some meta commentary, it's like a very interesting time for developer tools in the space. It's always been a hard industry to be a part of as a company trying to make tools, especially like smaller focused tools for people in the industry. And I think AI is making that even harder. And we're starting to see more of these large acquisitions. So, I mean, think of all the interesting dev tool, or a lot of the interesting dev tools that I can think of recently. So like Bund's acquisition to Anthropic, Astral's acquisition to OpenAI, the Void Zero team. I would say Astro previously. We'll go back to Sunil Pai's Party Kit, which I think is another, let's not discount that because he's a superstar. But, it's happening a lot over the space. And Vercel, of course, we have to talk about because they have, hired a lot of the framework authors who are kind of like working in the space, and it's like done a lot for their ecosystem. So I'm curious how y'all are thinking about the dev tool space as it comes to things that like interface with Cloudflare. So, these front end tools or JavaScript tools or like other things in the space, and like, Are you trying to sort of develop an acquisition strategy where you're looking at like complementary pieces of technology to sort of like, foster DevTools and open source and Cloudflare's brand? Or is it like you're just trying to be really strategic about, certain tools or teams that you're wanting to take on?
I think it gets back a little bit. I mean, this is going to maybe sound a little corny to some folks because you talk about corporate mission statements, right? But our corporate mission statement is right to help build a better internet. And actually, very frequently people will leave off that word help, and they will just say build a better internet, and you'll get corrected internally when you do that, because it really is about like what's good for Cloudflare is like this healthy open place. I mean, we want you to come host applications with us now. We've built all the tools to do that. But we also do well when we, sit in front of your application hosted elsewhere, right? Like that's the unique thing about Cloudflare is because of like the breadth of what we offer and, the suite of products we have is, it is a good thing for us, right? Our interests are aligned with you doing things other places as well, right? We don't want to be the entire internet. We want to help build the entire internet and we want to be a slice of it. And so for us, it's really looking for these teams that also have that same feeling, right? Like that's where, the Vite team is not trying to be the best and only framework. They're trying to be the thing that powers all the other frameworks, right? And so I think that's where, for us, like we kind of think strategically about, how do we have like lined up missions when it comes to those kinds of things.
And then I think we approach M&A in general with a lot of discipline. Cloudflare has just historically hasn't actually been a particularly acquisitive company. A lot of tech acquisitions go wrong. A lot of products never actually get fully integrated. Especially we have, when you run 20% of the web, it's a very unique scale to do things at, and we do have a very unique stack. If you build things somewhere else, it's very hard to then import that in a way that runs in our stack. So that there's kind of, generally when it comes to other acquisitions, we do tend to favor things that are already built on us because it makes that integration process so much easier. But one of the big things is definitely alignment with mission, which Steve just talked about. And the second thing that I know we already talked about too is, again, teams. It's just such an important element of the whole thing, right? For both, for us, like, is there going to be a culture fit, and then also for the long-term success of the team that we're acquiring, and making sure that they really find a home here and are able to be successful.
So one thing that comes to mind with this acquisition is funnel. I was reading the Superbase announcement yesterday for their new round of funding, and they included some pretty crazy stats in there. When AIs are picking like developer tools to pick when building a project, 60% use Neon, or 80, some high number. They're all choosing Superbase. They're all choosing Vercel. Was that a little bit of the thinking here too? Because like when I start a project, it's probably going to reach for Vite. And if Vite is part of you guys, I feel like it would steer developers more and more towards Cloudflare in that sense.
Yeah, I definitely think so, right? Like we just like everybody are realizing this, like, sort of getting agents to choose us is a good thing. So we've seen the numbers of Vite growing, and I track this pretty closely myself around all different frameworks, around which frameworks are getting tracked and downloaded more by AI, which aren't. I would say that was a little bit of like if you look at the graph from the blog post, it shows that we went from something like roughly 0 to 14 million downloads in the course of a year on our Vite plugin. That's not because of this acquisition, right? It just sort of happens to nicely line up with something we thought was already true, right? And so we sort of had this belief, we had this thesis that this is what's going to happen. And frankly, it sort of caught up to us, right? It happened way faster. I thought I would be talking about 10% of Vite downloads, a year from now. And instead, here we are talking about it, a few days after the acquisition. So I can't claim that we knew that was going to happen, but at the same time, we definitely were betting on that kind of future, right? So I think, just like everybody else, we think it's important to, be the best place that agents can build. And that's getting in with the technology stacks that agents are already picking, and then guiding them, to the path that leads them to Cloudflare.
I think the really interesting thing about Vite is, and one of the things that we've been talking about in general is, if you think about the purpose of frameworks, right? Frameworks are a layer of abstraction that's intended to make it a lot easier for the vast majority of developers to build applications because, hopefully you don't have to like assemble a toaster every time you want toast. You just pop it in there and it works. And that's the whole point of frameworks is they take care of all of the boilerplate. But now in the age of AI, the thing with frameworks is, there's always a trade-off, right? You take a lot of opinions that help you out with the fact that you don't have to do things from scratch, but then sometimes you disagree with those opinions and you kind of have to concede on them. And the really interesting thing with AI is, the cost of writing a lot of that craft and that boilerplate has gone way down to where, in some cases you might actually not reach for a framework or for a package. You might just say like, hey, I'd rather build this from scratch. It's totally built to my custom need. I don't have third-party dependencies. And with Vite kind of being this lower level, more underlying technology, we thought that was now in 2026, an interesting approach to top of funnel compared to just thinking about things at the framework level.
When I wrote the blog post on vNext, right, which we did a few months ago, I talked about this, right? There is some line, right, that is now shifting where sort of the software matters or doesn't matter, right? And so for us, Vite is I bet that the line is lower down the stack, right? So we'll have to come back on in a year, and you can all tell us we were right.
Yeah. Speaking of vNext, the collaboration with OpenAI with the Codex sites was pretty exciting to see, and I think that uses vNext under the hood. That was an interesting thing to watch develop.
Yeah, no, it does. So it's not super publicized, but it is just show up in the docs in a few places. I feel like we can talk about it. So yeah, if you, it depends what you're doing. They have a few different starter packs, but it will actually generate a vNext site for you. Yeah, that was a really cool thing to see happen. That was the Codex team was evaluating different things they wanted to do, and they're the ones that selected that. It was pretty cool to see something that literally came about 2 months ago, sort of already being used in production in that way. It just speaks to the velocity of which we can build software these days. It's pretty wild.
Hasn't even technically hit 1.0.
We're shooting for a 1.0 here in about a month. So we actually hired somebody full time to work on vNext. I have limited time as a person with like 100 reports, and so we've got somebody working on it full time, and we're getting close to 1.0.
But that's actually the other cool story. I mean, obviously, it was really cool to see Codex sites launch on vNext and Vite and Workers. Similarly, Lovable has been doing a lot with TanStack, which is also a Vite-based framework. Claude.ai in and of itself is also a TanStack app. So it's cool to see all of the traction that's happening in the space, right?
A question that I have sort of been wanting to ask someone inside of Cloudflare is like just around product strategy. So y'all have been shifting to cover like higher and higher up the stack. So we started the conversation saying that originally you were probably almost seen more like an Akamai competitor than like AWS competitor in the sense is like it's like networks and stuff, and you'll move well beyond that now. The Workers platform has like all the sort of core primitives that someone would expect. So you have your runtime execution with Workers itself, you have your storage with R2, databases with D1, all these like basically all the primitives that you need to build most modern day applications. And then there's also this like meta layer that y'all are pushing into. And a lot of it seems like it's like you're taking these primitives that you have that you're offering to customers and also trying to build like extra product on top of those. So some recent examples would be potentially like the agents framework that you're building to sort of like make it easy to make agents. Code mode, maybe we can like lump into this with like dynamic workers and the capabilities that you're shipping there. But also things like artifacts, which is this like get hosted Git feature on durable objects that that some of the folks have been working on there. And I'm just kind of interested to hear, like, when you are thinking about like core infrastructural capabilities versus like product add-ons, like things that you offer on top of the infrastructure, how do you sort of like navigate what is the space that we want to get in and what is worth like trying to sell? And yeah, I don't know, what does that look like for y'all?
Yeah, I mean, generally, we do think of ourselves fundamentally as an infrastructure company. So that's always the layer and the level that we start with. It is the primitives, and from there, we try to keep an eye out for, when there's a sidewalk, but then you look at the lawn and there's like, where the real sidewalk is, where people have been walking. I feel like you kind of notice these patterns with software development as well, where eventually you see a lot of people leaning into doing the same thing over and over. And so at that point, we think about where do we lean in and kind of offer something a bit more vertical. And every time we do this, there's a lot of internal discussion that goes on about, what's a managed product and what's maybe a library or a framework that we put out there instead to, let people determine their own path a little bit more. Pages, which is now part of Workers altogether, kind of started out this way, where we provided initially just a CLI tool to do things. And then we kept getting more and more customers that were like, I really just want to deploy sites on you. Like, please make that easy for me and automate that like end-to-end cycle with GitHub. And, whereas previously we were like, but we gave you all the building blocks and like we documented it. You can do it yourself. And they're like, you're my provider, like do it for me. So, then we would lean in and do it. But yeah, this is something that's actually an active discussion for us every time. And a lot of it is, again, driven out of also internal experimentation. Dog fooding is really, really core to our strategy here too. Yeah, and then, I mentioned this before, but we really do kind of try to pay attention to, what's happening outside of us and what are gaps that are left out there that, we see an opportunity. And sometimes we see our customers leaning into those gaps really hard. And so we'll kind of stay out and say, actually, you guys are better off just using the tools that we're providing you. As an example, we get asked often, are you guys going to launch a vibe coding platform? And there are so many great vibe coding platforms out there already. A lot of them are built on us. We're happy to, defer on solving that problem. But then, something like artifacts, we kept having customers that were asking about, especially in the age of agents, the whole model for like, how do you do versioned storage is coming up more and more. So again, that's exactly the kind of primitive where we want to lean in and solve it for as many people as possible in one go.
Artifacts is a great example where we made the choice to sort of lean into something we thought was going to be very important, right? And we had customers telling us that. And Artifacts came about in just a few weeks. And part of the reason is because it's built entirely on the primitives that we already have, right? Artifacts is built entirely on durable objects. And so we could do it in 3 weeks because we had all the pieces already, and we just had to sort of package them together into a thing that made sense.
Good primitives are always powerful. So to think about the licensing a little bit, all of these projects are open source projects. And one of the big fears from a lot of people that I've been reading about on like Hacker News and social media websites is the stewardship of those projects. And that can go a bunch of different ways. I can point to a few different examples, like Svelte's a great example. It was bought 5 years ago, and I don't think there's one Vercel fingerprint on it. But maybe React, there's some API changes that might have served Vercel more than they might have served others. So when you guys are thinking about how you're going to manage these projects going forward, how many fingerprints of Cloudflare are we going to see on it, or is it going to be more of a hands-off approach?
It's interesting you bring up those examples because, Svelte, I agree, Svelte has been done great. But to be clear, React is not owned by Vercel, right, in any real way, right?
Yeah.
So it speaks to the fact that these projects can be steered and influenced even without any technical ownership, right? So there's like lots that can happen there. As far as us, I said it a bazillion times, and I'm going to keep saying it. Everything remains open source, MIT licensed. Everything remains community driven. This is something kind of as we got closer to being done with acquisition. We were involved with some of the Vite community, just making sure that there were no hiccups there as well. Evan was very helpful with that. We really want these to continue to just be like these really healthy projects. I think if you look at our background here, right, with Astro, I hope people feel like Astro has lived up to the promise we made, which is, we said it would be continue, and they've already done another major release. They've got another one planned. Very much not, that we're not adding Cloudflare specific APIs or doing anything like that. And that is not our plan with Vite 2, right? We do want Vite. I think the one thing that we said in the blog post, we want Vite to become more full stack, right? We sort of want it to take on a little bit more scope in what it's capable of doing. But in order to do that, we have to do it in the right way, and we have to do it with the Vite team, with the Vite community, using the normal RFC process, right? It's not going to just like show up and be, these new features in Vite without any input from anybody else.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think, like, selfishly, because I deploy all my stuff to Cloudflare anyway, sometimes it is nice to see some of these projects have closer collaboration, because I know the support will be better. I had that feeling when y'all bought Astro, because I use Astro for a lot of projects, and the Cloudflare plugin sometimes had some issues, and I saw those issues get ironed out, and I was like, that's nice.
That's good to hear. I get the hesitation people have around all this. I mean, I've been in the industry long enough too, and there's been many jobs now working at Cloudflare, so I've seen what it's like when some of these big companies acquire things, and so I know how it can go. So I understand why people get nervous about this, and I think the thing, people just have to trust us a little bit and sort of judge us based on what we actually do going forward.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair on the collaboration piece, we have a frameworks team, and a lot of these frameworks we've been collaborating with kind of long before we even started any of these acquisitions, which is what made them feel so organic, because to our team, the new team members are the same team members that they've been reviewing PRs from and responding to messages to for maybe several years.
I wanted to ask one other question about like how Cloudflare's like growth has evolved. So you are an infrastructure company. You have a lot of infrastructure and a lot of data centers that you own or rent, presumably. And you've had like very distinct kinds of workloads on those for a long time. And Workers is like such an interesting product because it's running in V8 isolate, so you can do that pretty like compute efficiently. It was really interesting watching the sandbox sort of functionality come out. It's like, okay, this makes total sense that you ought to want to release this. And the first thing that happened back in my head is like, I wonder like how this is like stressing the infrastructure. So it's like you have this like edge runtime, and you have this, I'm assuming, just like growing compute needs at the edge. And that's not even to think about like Workers AI, which is, it's its own thing entirely. I'm curious how the growth and evolution of your platform has actually like stressed or had y'all to have to like change how you think about strategy from like a pure infrastructure perspective of like how you are, allocating, I don't know, data centers, and like, how like that part of your business has changed, because I'm sure it's been significant.
Rita, you want to take this one, or should I take it?
Let me take a stab at it, and feel free to fill in. I'm curious, actually, if you have a different perspective. I mean, Cloudflare has been doing infrastructure at scale that I think, first of all, most people can't quite wrap their head around for a very long time now. And we have an incredible infrastructure team that can make things happen very, very quickly, because we've been working with many of these providers for over a decade, and have these existing relationships. The interesting thing about Cloudflare is the way that our stack is built. Basically, for the most part, every single machine at Cloudflare runs practically the same exact stack. I've had people ask me like, oh, does Workers only run in some data centers or in some machines? And actually, like, no, every single machine that you hit will have Workers running on it. But there are conversations that we end up we do regularly catch up with our infrastructure team and are constantly reevaluating. It's less about, oh, is workers or containers putting stress on the system, because the system is designed to be able to handle a lot of stress, but more, are we seeing different profiles of traffic now? And how do we think about maybe the next generation of infrastructure that we invest in that context, especially, as the mix of compute and storage and network, these things shifts towards more full stack workloads.
So that this comes up a lot internally. So we talk about this all the time, about some of these new things that are happening, and it's not just about containers, although that's definitely part of it. But workers is part of it. Some of the even stuff around R2 and storage and what we're doing there. So we're like constantly looking at this. I think memory is becoming a bigger thing for us than it was in the past, right? Before, it's like network and CPU are really the things that you need, the levers you have to pull for DDoS protection, for DNS, things like that. But now suddenly, these more stateful workloads, memory becomes more of a bottleneck. And so, okay, we need machines with more memory. We need more memory in general. Memory is super expensive right now, in case you hadn't heard, right? So, but our infrastructure team is really, really good and collaborative and helps us work through some of this stuff. So, but yeah, it's like this constant tension, right? But that we're always trying to sort of like resolve. But part of the reason that we have something like workers in the first place is because it is so compute efficient, right? I mean, you said that yourself, right? It is like a fundamental bet on this technology as just being like a better primitive that we can operate better, right? And that it is like provides a better experience for customers.
And I think Cloudflare is a strong believer in constraints breeding innovation. That is the origin story of workers. That we had this constraint of having to be able to run untrusted code in a way that didn't introduce practically any latency to a request. If we didn't have that constraint, we probably would have built containers yet again. And so it's actually always interesting to see what innovation comes out of. Some problems are going to be solved at the hardware layer, but we are constantly coming up with new innovation on the software layer to optimize, whether it's for CPU or memory or disk, and do things in a more clever and more efficient way. And often those innovations end up in products or features or innovations that are better for our customers, or allow us to in some ways pass those costs down to our customers, or other benefits, whether it's security or performance or other things.
Yeah, it's so interesting here. It's like something I think about probably too often. Is just like, what does that look like?
Is that your Roman Empire?
Yeah, it is. It kind of is, actually. I don't know. V8 isolate's really interesting, but thinking how, like, okay, we have this like very particular workload. Now we have like containers that we're, shipping to all these like edge services. I don't know. Anyway, I have a follow-on question to this. That's another interesting thing. So Cloudflare is known for having a very, very generous free tier for things. It's like almost a meme on tech Twitter now about like, oh yeah, I like run all these things and I like pay like 3 cents this month or whatever. And I'm sure that that's like helped with adoption and helped people like sort of like adopt to the new mental models. But as you like sort of work on making Cloudflare feel just like another, application platform where people have all the primitives that they need, and it feels, similar to any other thing that they may be used to, and traffic grows and memory gets more expensive, do you think that you're going to have to reposition how you think about those like entry tiers? Or is that like some fundamental, like, a goal for you to like keep that entry tier pretty low so that people can try and can, experiment until, committing to like a larger spend?
I can say one thing for sure, which is there will always be a Cloudflare free tier that's so core to the way that our business operates. If you go back and read Cloudflare's S1, the free tier is talked about in there as one of the things that powers the self-serve flywheel. I mean, the the way that so much of our adoption has worked, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've had this conversation where, this really large deal will get closed, $1 million deal, and it's the beginning of the deal started out with the CTO or an engineer being like, playing with something on the weekend on the free tier, maybe DMing one of us and being like, oh, can you increase this limit for me? Or, oh, I'm, looking to try this out for my project at work. And it bubbles up from there. So, the way that developers try things, the way that developers learn things is by trying them. And we always want that option to be available to developers. There are products where it's trickier for us to offer that due to different abuse vectors. So there, might be some areas where we limit that or are a bit more thoughtful or have tighter limits. But generally, that's always going to be the case. Steve was just talking about the cost of memory going up, as the cost of everything around the world increases. Cloudflare, we've done incremental price increases on like our plans in the past. But I can tell you that every time that we do that, it's always going to be with a lot of caution and consideration. And it's not something that we at all take lightly, but that experimentation, you'll always see us leaning into that.
So with both Asteroid and Void, they were like actual products, like making money, trying to do that with also open source offerings. But there's a lot of other like products out there. Like I just looked at TanStack, and guys are the top sponsor of that. And that seems like a framework similar to Astro. So like, where is your guys' line of like, that seems like an acquisition and that seems like a sponsorship? Because it's not all that clear to me.
It's highly dependent on what is the like mix up of the team and the people and what's needed. And, some of these places have raised venture capital, some of them haven't, right? I mean, there's like so much like that goes into this, right? I think it's like the synthesis of all that makes us determine, what we may or may not do, right? I think with Vite specifically, right, the attractive part to us is, it is this lower level thing, right, that then powers everything else, right? Everything you just mentioned is built on top of Vite. Really, at this point, the only thing that's, not built on top of Vite is Next.js, right? So that's what makes Vite unique, right? As far as these other things, right? It's working with the founders, working with the creators to understand what their motivations are. What do they want to do? Where do they want to go with these tools? Is it better to be inside or outside? And I'll just say we have healthy relationships with literally every one of these people. Like I talk to them on a regular basis and say, like, how's it going? How can we work better together, right? Like, what do we need to do to support you all?
So it's been really fun to watch all the things that y'all have been shipping, and it's accelerated. It seems like I was kind of joking with my partner the other night. It's like I feel like Twitter is just like Cloudflare feed. That's all I see now. Is just like it's just a bunch of Cloudflare developers. Not convinced that Twitter isn't just like 3 Cloudflare engineers in a trench coat. But, so as y'all are sort of like building these primitives and shifting your business, thinking more about AI, thinking more about like the agentic cloud and adapting to this new future, expanding sort of the markets as you hit, obviously thinking very strategically about open source and front-end frameworks and that whole ecosystem. Where do you see your business going over the next year, 2 years, 3 years? And like how pivotal do you think the sort of like recent developments are in that story?
You asked like this question about 1, 2, 3 years out. I don't know if I could tell you how software is going to be written next month, right? Like it does feel like we are living through this just massive revolution. I mean, I sort of came up in software during, when mobile was first coming around. And even that, I mean, it took a while for everybody to get a device in their hands that they could do these things with. And now you have the latest AI model when everybody else does, right? There's no lag. So I honestly don't know what it's going to look like to build software in like a year from now. And I think it's going to look very different than what we do today, right? We're just scratching the surface of how powerful these things are. And probably in both good and bad ways, right? Like a bunch of software is going to get released. It's going to be pretty vibe coded, and you see this already, and it's going to be full of security things, and we're going to figure out how to deal with those consequences too, right? but it's a wild time. I'm excited. I'm excited to be a software developer right now. But it is also like a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, I think to your point, I've been thinking about. I was coming up at a similar time with the mobile era being a big thing, and the really interesting thing about that is that the cloud just barely preceded mobile, right? AWS really launched in like 2006 with S3, and the iPhone came out in what 2007, 2008. And it I wonder, it makes me wonder if, if the cloud would have happened actually without mobile, because the big shift that happened was we went from being able to access the web only when we were at our computers to like now we were accessing it all the time. And these devices were a lot cheaper. So like so much more of the global population got connected to the internet. So internet traffic kind of rose overnight. And also because people were accessing it from these new devices, it ushered in this new era of like a new type of software. Like there was no such thing as, we talk about mobile apps so casually now, but there was no such thing as a mobile app in like 2005, right? So people like Uber didn't make sense in 2005, but like all of a sudden in 2009, you had to build it. And the only way that you could build it was on the cloud. So it was kind of this perfect combination of things. But we are entering another era that I feel like even more novel in some ways than mobile, because using mobile is not that different from using your computer in some ways. The way that agents are going to interact with the web and, replace us in taking on certain tasks, I don't really know what it will look like, but I think we are going to see a similar explosion of like web traffic because agents don't sleep. Agents can do stuff when I'm in a meeting. Agents can do stuff when I'm at dinner. And what we are already seeing actually is that they do require a new set of primitives to be able to do all this stuff. That this is, what uh, uh, that's what makes me really excited about code mode. It started out as kind of a maybe niche thing that we were talking about, but I actually don't see a way for agents to get really productive without this ability to be able to write code and execute it on the fly. And so dynamic workers, really it's workers. Dynamic workers is just a new API that's available for workers. It is a really critical element in that. I think durable objects, similarly, we've been building a lot of agents internally, is a really, really critical primitive. We're seeing the way in which, artifacts, which wasn't even on our radar at all a year ago, now, again, every customer we have that's building agents at a certain point approaches us and is like, I need this. So I don't know what the next ones of these will be, because to Steve's point, I don't have a crystal ball and everything. I feel like a year ago in this moment in time, things kind of felt a little bit figured out for a second, and we're like, okay, agents, sure. And then with the model advancements that happened in December, we're like, oh shit, agents. This is a whole different ball game. I can, I can fork Next.js in, a couple weeks. It's like completely different. So I'm interested to see like what the next wave of model advancements will look like, what the next wave of agentic advancements will look like. And, I think that there's so much still up for grabs and up for figuring out, our chats, the like end all be all of interfaces. I don't know. I know that Steve is very bullish on voice.
Let me rant about voice for a sec, right? So I have to thank my son because he was born right around the time, so he's 3 now, right? So I switched to voice to text very heavily during that era because I was like carrying a baby around all the time. So I developed a really good workflow around that. And then when agents came out, I just started doing voice to text for all this stuff. And I'll help myself up a little bit here, which is, there are people that have said, what's your workflow? And they're like trying to understand who's using agents well, who's using them not quite as well, and like what the difference is in our workflow. And one of the things I actually realized just about maybe a month or two ago is actually voice. Like I almost exclusively talk to my computer now. And And the people who are sort of not getting the same results from me, that's actually one of the big differences, right? And I was like, it didn't click for me. I was like, why isn't this working for you? And that's like, because I'm just ranting at my computer to get results. And it turns out agents are really good at taking unintelligible garbage that comes out of my mouth and understanding it and saying, I know exactly what you want me to do. Right? So voice to text, huge part of my workflow. And I just think I got a little lucky there that I sort of already switched to that workflow in advance. So.
But yeah, to summarize, I don't think any of us know what the future will look like. I think we are in early innings of it and are kind of starting to see some patterns shape up that are really exciting. And I think that if you're a developer, everything's game right now. So should like try building stuff and experiment.
That's when people will ask me too, they're like, what works? What do you use? What is that? What's this tool? And I'm like, it all works. Everything works. Everything. So just like use anything and you'll learn something from it, right? Like it's a magical time.
I mean, honestly, what I've found is that I'm not that creative sometimes. And maybe it's because I'm realizing, maybe I'm mobile era, but I'm not agent native. And so one of the things that I found to be a big unlock is sitting down with new grads, some interns, some of the most junior people on my team and being like, all right, show me your workflows. And they come up with things that just wouldn't cross my mind in terms of, not just being more efficient at coding, but in human interactions and like how they summarize conversations and pick them up and able to like use AI to understand things very deeply. To me, that's I think learning from other people is such a big way to get inspired.
Absolutely.
Well, that wraps it up for our questions this week. This was a great conversation. I'm super excited about where y'all are heading. I'm excited to see that these projects are getting funded in these significant ways and won't just die on the vine like so many other projects have. So thanks for coming on and talking about it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. It was our pleasure.
Yeah, it's great having y'all. Huge fan. Love everything you were doing. Maybe I'll come up to the 88th floor one day and we can have coffee. But really excited to see what y'all release next.